Week 1 gave us some monster workloads, surprise committees, and some flat-out disappointments at running back. Who can you actually trust to carry your team into Week 2? Let's dive into the top 30 running back rankings. What's up, Headliner Nation? My name is Brad, the Rankings King, and before we jump into this week's rankings, just a reminder that these are the consensus rankings between Jake and Kyle, and for more detailed analysis, make sure to check out the start-sit videos posted earlier this week. And if you want even more breakdowns each week, join the Fantasy Headliners community by hitting the join button below. That's going to get you access to extra rankings like flex and kicker and defense, and a spot in our Discord community, which was so much fun this weekend, so you don't want to miss out. Now, before we rank Week 2, we've got some running back hits and misses from week number 1. First up was Kyren Williams, and he had a tough Week 1 matchup against Houston, but that touchdown upside is just too much to ignore. We had him at running back 12, and he finished at RB 15 with over 13 fantasy points. How about Alvin Kamara? We really expected more in the pass game for Kamara, but we also knew that New Orleans was going to be playing catch up, and so we had him at RB 18, and we got it right on the nose. He finished at RB 18. And then there's Travion Henderson. There was a lot of hype surrounding Henderson, but like we said all year, Stevenson is going to have a role at least to start the year. So we put Hendo at RB 23, and he finished at RB 26. All right, so those are the hits, but here are the misses. First up is Javonte Williams. We never expected 2 touchdowns from Williams in Week 1, and Jalen Carter going all Hawk Tua and getting kicked out of the game played a part here. But either way, Javonte looked great last week, and we really had him too low. Next up is Travis Etienne. He for sure took his shot in Week 1, and he ran with it. Not only did he win the job, but he got Tank Bigsby shipped out of town. Now, there's more clarity in the backfield, and he will move up in the rankings going forward. And then what about Breece Hall? You know, the split between Hall and Allen, we think it was probably blown out of proportion. And Hall ran all over a tough Pittsburgh defense. And with that kind of volume, he has got to be put higher in the rankings going forward. So that's your hits and misses. Now, let's get into the tiers. All right, first up, we've got Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, and Chase Brown. First up is Christian McCaffrey. And I truly hope that this isn't the kiss of death here this week, but he's coming off of a game where he had 31 touches. You've got Kittle now on IR. Jennings is less than 100%, and Purdy is dealing with multiple injuries as well. What does that mean? CMC has got to get a ton of touches. Coming in at number 2, we've got Jahmyr Gibbs. And last week we saw Aaron Jones find some success in the pass game, and Gibbs is coming off a game with 10 targets. Chicago should be able to put up some offense, and Gibbs should be involved in the pass game once again. Next up, we've got Derrick Henry, and what a shocking loss for the Ravens last week. It was a costly Henry fumble late that led to the loss. And the King, he looks like a man amongst boys, and now he's mad. And Cleveland is on the other side of a raging bull, where during their last meeting, Derrick Henry ran for over 160 total yards. Number 4, we've got Saquon Barkley. And Kansas City is still one of the better run defenses in the NFL. One of Saquon's worst rushing games of 2024 was in the Super Bowl against these Chiefs. Now, his ceiling is undeniable, and so that's why he still lives in tier 1 regardless of that. At number 5, we've got Bijan Robinson. And listen, he didn't have a great Week 1 on the ground against Tampa, but he ended the day with 100 yards receiving, and that's encouraging. This Vikings front could be tough to find room, though, in Week 2, and passing work is going to have to play a part once again. At number 6, we've got Chase Brown. And sure, he was inefficient in Week 1 against the Browns, but he got 23 touches, and no other back in Cincy got a single single carry. Now, he gets a much better matchup this week against the Jags, who just allowed over 16 fantasy points to Chuba Hubbard. And so that keeps Chase in tier number 1. Now, before we head into the next tier, we've got to make sure that you've got an account on Underdog. We're crushing those player pick'ems this year on Underdog, and so now is the time to sign up. Just head over to Underdog Fantasy or download the app, create a new account using the referral code HEADLINERS when you do, and then just make your initial deposit and come join a contest. You're also going to get a first-time deposit bonus and a free player pick'em. Jake is also going to be breaking down the best picks weekly in a show on Fridays to get you some of that cash money. So links to join Underdog Fantasy are in the description below, and we look forward to playing with you in 2025. All right, let's move on to tier number 2. We've got Josh Jacobs, Kyron Williams, Bucky Irvin, Devon Achane, Breece Hall, Jonathan Taylor, James Cook, Chuba Hubbard, Ashton Jeanty, and James Conner. At number 7, Josh Jacobs. The Green Bay receiving room is a little banged up right now. So Wicks, Reed, Golden, all of them are nursing injuries, which means the Packers are going to have to rely on Jacobs heavily this week. That's why we have him at the top of tier 2. And then you've got Kyron Williams. He's scored a touchdown in 14 of his last 19 games. All but 3 running back touches in LA went to Kyron in week 1, and now he gets a Tennessee matchup who allowed over 20 points to running backs in week 1. Now, at number 9, Bucky Irving. Bucky didn't have a great week 1, but he found the end zone and he scored over 12 points last week. He dominated backfield touches and running back targets, and Houston just allowed Kyron Williams to score over 13 points in week 1, and that's why we've got Bucky right there at number 9. Now, number 10, we've got Devon Achane, and no team looked worse in week 1 than Miami. They fell behind early, and they just absolutely lost the ability to run the ball. Achane couldn't even get over 10 total touches, and the Pats held Ashton Jeanty in check last week. So all that we're saying is that this Miami offense has got to figure it out, and fast. At number 11, can we just say, holy Breece Hall, Batman, in week 1. The split backfield, it was nowhere near as bad as expected, and Hall ran all over the Steelers. 21 total touches, 145 total yards. That's great. And sure, Justin Fields is going to take away touchdowns, but that volume alone keeps him in the top 15. And then, number 12, we've got Jonathan Taylor. You have to think that the Colts are going to struggle to move the ball through the air against Denver. And listen, don't worry about the usage of DJ Giddens in week 1. Indy was up so much at that point, they really didn't have a reason to overwork JT. Next up, we've got James Cook going into New York to face the Jets. He now has touchdowns in 15 of his last 20 games. He commands the touches on the ground and in the air for the backs in Buffalo, and he truly has home run potential every single game. Now, the Jets did hold the Steelers' backs in check last week, but that's not enough to scare us here. So he's a solid play this week. At number 14, we've got Chuba Hubbard. And you may know that Carolina brought in Rico Dowdle and drafted Trevor Etienne, but it doesn't matter. This is Chuba's backfield. Garbage time or not, 19 touches is in line with where he was last year. And now he gets Arizona, who allowed 16 fantasy points to running backs last week. At number 15, we've got Ashton Jeanty. And listen, 19 carries for 38 yards. Help me, Tom Cruise, right? It's enough to make you gag, especially since he only had 2 catches for 2 yards in the pass game. We talked about the struggles of this offense all offseason, and now they get the Chargers, who stuffed the Chiefs running backs. At number 16, we've got James Conner, and I would love to have Conner higher in a matchup against Carolina, but the usage of Trey Benson along with his big playability gives a little pause for the cause, but we can't deny the matchup. Etienne torched Carolina last week. I'm sad about it. Appreciate the reminder there, boys. All right, let's keep pounding into tier number 3. We've got Travis Etienne, Alvin Kamara, Omarion Hampton, Tony Pollard, Travion Henderson, DeAndre Swift, and Aaron Jones. At 17, Travis Etienne. We went from wondering if he was even going to have a job to absolutely taking the job over after week 1. Now, Tank Bigsby is gone, and the bulk of the volume is going to be going to Etienne. And the reality is since he was soft against pass-catching backs last week, and we think that Etienne could excel there this week as well. Next up, we've got Alvin Kamara. And look, we're going to have some more involvement in the passing game. Kamara getting only 2 targets in a game where they were trailing the entire time, that enough is a huge concern. But in a matchup against a banged-up 49ers team, he is a mid RB2 at best. Emphasis on the mid. At number 19, we've got Omarion Hampton. And Hampton didn't do much in week 1, but let's give some credit to that Kansas City run defense. He out-touched Najee 17-2. Now, with that said, as Najee gets closer to 100%, that could change some, but this LA team looks to throw it a lot more, and that's actually the bigger concern. And at number 20, we've got Tony Pollard. And Pollard had a tough week 1 against Denver, but he dominated those backfield touches. The big issue is going to be the lack of scoring chances that he's going to get on most weeks. And LA is another tough matchup, and they only allowed 8.4 points to running backs in week 1. How about Travion Henderson at 21? You know, a lot of people thought that he was going to get all the touches, but like we said, Stevenson was going to have a role at least at the start of the year. Now, this matchup is against a Miami team that looked pretty horrible in week 1, so that could help a ton. Next up, we've got DeAndre Swift. And Swift wasn't great in week 1, but he was going up against one of the better defenses in the NFL in Minnesota. Unfortunately, now he gets the draw of a Detroit team that held Jacobs to just 70 total yards. So this week, it's not going to be much easier. At number 23, we've got Aaron Jones. And we saw a lot of Jordan Mason last week, but Aaron Jones has always really been better when he isn't overworked. It boosts his efficiency. And that's why Mason had more touches, but Jones ended with more points. So his pass game work is going to be a huge bonus. So that's tier number 3. Now let's move on to tier number 4. We've got David Montgomery, Kenneth Walker, Javonte Williams, J.K. Dobbins, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Jalen Warren, and Zach Charbonnet. Let's start off with David Montgomery. He's had at least 85 yards or a touchdown in every game he's played against the Bears since he left there. Now, unfortunately, the touchdowns may not be as consistent week to week, and that makes him more of a flex play until Detroit can improve up front. Next up, we've got Kenneth Walker. And listen, everyone is hopping off of the Walker bandwagon after week 1. And while the split in the backfield wasn't ideal, it's way too early to give up on him quite yet. He's not 100% healthy, but Pittsburgh just allowed 24.2 fantasy points to running backs in week 1. At number 26, we've got Javonte Williams. He looked the best we had seen him in quite some time. Now, again, it did help that defensive tackle Jalen Carter got kicked out right at the start. That helped Williams, no doubt about it. And now he gets a tough Giants front, and that's going to be a very good test of if he's ranked properly. At number 27, we've got J.K. Dobbins. And Dobbins led this backfield in touches, and that was no surprise. He out-touched Harvey 18-7, and he found the end zone. Of course, Harvey looked more explosive, and it's only a matter of time. So expect the Denver offense to right the ship this week. At number 28, we've got Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, and we just saw this Packers defense shut down the run game in Detroit in week 1. And JCM is the clear lead back in Washington, but will continue to lose touchdowns to Debo and Daniels, and he won't be a thing in the passing game, so that kind of caps his ceiling. Next up, we've got Jaylen Warren, and there's no reason for Arthur Smith to be using Kenneth Gainwell like he did. It's just to be weird. But because he's weird so often, that severely handcuffs this backfield, even in good matchups like this one. So we've got him right there at 29. And then to round out the top 30, we've got Zach Charbonnet. And being that this is close to a 50-50 split and the Steelers were just torched by the Jets running game in week 1, there's a chance that Seattle tries to do something similar to keep the ball away from Rodgers and that passing offense. So there you go. There's your top 30, and we've got a few more outside looking in, some honorable mentions, and that is Jordan Mason, Nick Chubb, Isaiah Pacheco, Tyron Tracy Jr., RJ Harvey, Dylan Sampson, and Trey Benson. And that's how the running back board shakes out for week 2. And we got to know, which back are you leaning on to carry your team to victory, and which ones are you avoiding? Let us know in the comments. We're going to get to as many questions as possible. Hit that like button and make sure to subscribe so you are locked in for all the rankings videos all season long. Thanks so much for rolling with us, Headliner Nation. We'll see you next time.
Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game.